In the United States, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick's interview on Podforce One made some real waves. He shared that years ago, as a longtime neighbor of Jeffrey Epstein, he and his wife were invited into Epstein's Manhattan townhouse. Offered a tour of the premises, they were brought to a large dining room, featuring a massage table in the center. Lutnick remembers Epstein boasting about getting, quote, the right kind of massage every single day. Lutnick says he and his wife were so disgusted that they decided never to be in the same room with Epstein again. But then he went on to call Epstein the greatest blackmailer ever, and speculated that Epstein's notorious 2008 plea deal might have been a trade for hidden recordings of powerful men. It's a pretty lurid story. But according to Lutnick himself, that's the full extent of what he personally knows. He doesn't claim direct evidence of secret cameras, tapes, and refuses to name any witnesses who provided him his information. Yet now, he talks as if Epstein's blackmail operation is just an established fact, and his own encounter was a Cassandra moment. If you genuinely believe you've just glimpsed the lair of a predator, you don't just leave quietly, you report it. Lutnick did not. He didn't call the police. He didn't warn colleagues. He didn't write a memo or file a report. For more than a decade, through Epstein's 2008 plea, through the 2019 arrest, and through Epstein's death, Lutnick said nothing publicly about his brief but disturbing visit. This isn't a small omission. If Lutnick had taken any protective or exculpatory step back then, he'd be waving it around now as proof of his good judgment. Instead, his public record is silence until 2025. The timing and venue are, honestly, striking. Lutnick isn't just a private citizen. He's a billionaire financial executive, a longtime Trump golf partner, and now a cabinet secretary. He did not disclose this story when Epstein was arrested in 2019, nor when victims were testifying, nor when Congress first demanded documents. He chose to tell it now, on a friendly podcast, as Epstein's name returns to the headlines. If this were about public safety or moral duty, the logical time to speak up was long ago. Coming forward now looks less like whistleblowing and more like narrative inoculation. Getting your alibi on the record before your name appears in someone else's file. Look closely at how Lutnick frames his tale. Step 1, I was there. Proximity gives him credibility. Step 2, I was horrified. Moral disgust gives him a shield. Step 3, Epstein blackmailed everyone. This sweeping claim, presented without evidence, sounds like an attempt to preemptively explain away whatever records might surface. That is not how genuine whistleblowers talk. That is how reputational damage control works. The narrative gives Lutnick all the benefits of proximity, insider knowledge, and all the benefits of distance, moral revulsion, at once. This would be easier to dismiss if Lutnick were merely speculating as a private citizen. But he is a sitting cabinet secretary, contradicting his own administration's public position. Both the FBI and the Department of Justice have said there is no credible evidence of a client list Epstein trafficked minors to, a position advanced by FBI Director Kash Patel in congressional testimony. Lutnick says, in effect, they're wrong, yet he offers no new evidence to support that reversal. The clear implication is that he has personal knowledge that he isn't sharing to protect someone. But who? If he truly knows something the public and his government do not, why hasn't he provided it under oath? Why not brief Congress or the FBI? His choice to go public with vague accusations rather than furnish evidence is more consistent with positioning and protection than revelation. Everything about Lutnick's story looks odd until you remember who he is. Then it just looks contrived. This is not a random hedge funder. This is Howard Lutnick, Trump's longtime friend, a billionaire now serving in Trump's cabinet. If anyone outside Mar-a-Lago would have a sense of what Trump intends to do with the sealed Epstein records, it is Lutnick. the former president has the authority to order their release. If such a release is imminent, Lutnick would likely be among the first to know. Seen in that light, his performance reads, not just as self-exculpation, but as a signal to others. The files are coming. Get your story out now. If Lutnick's move reflects fear of disclosure, we should expect a chorus of similar performances from other powerful figures. I only met him once, but I was horrified interviews. Incidental anecdotes that show proximity and disgust but no complicity. Vague speculation about blackmail. We may also see more officials suddenly contradicting positions they previously endorsed, as they try to distance themselves from a potentially collapsing narrative. Howard Lutnick isn't blowing a whistle. He's rehearsing an alibi. His story is not a confession or a leak but an audition for the role of innocent neighbor who knew in the coming public reckoning. In reputational crises, elites often deploy a narrative vaccine, disclose a controlled anecdote, express moral disgust, float a theory, and position themselves as observers rather than participants before any accusations surface. The public should take note. When powerful people begin telling stories that make them sound both close enough to know and clean enough to be innocent, it's rarely because they've suddenly found their conscience. It's usually because they've read the tea leaves. If the Epstein files are about to drop, watch closely who's scrambling for cover.